from KVUE and you can respond in the chat, that would work. Okay, we're still waiting on KVUE. Hey, Xan, are you in here? Thank you. Fox 7. I see Jaime and KTBC Fox 7 are in here. Spectrum News. Thank you, KVUE. Spectrum News, are y'all here? I think I see that y'all are on the guest list, so we're just going to move on to the next group. KUT. Thank you, Nathan. And Univision. Thank you, Alicia. And is the Texan in here? Oh yes, I just saw they were added. Brad Johnson from the Texan is here. At the end, when we open it up for questions, if y'all can just take turns, you can turn on your mic. You don't need to turn on your camera when asking Chief a question. But before you ask your question, if you don't mind just saying your name and what station you're from, that way he can address you by name if he wishes to do so. Before you state your question, that would be appreciated. Did we ever get someone from Statesman in here? I just wanted to double check. Okay. Vicky, are you in here? Can you advise what news station you're with? And also Joelle McNew. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with everyone's name, so I do apologize. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate you. Welcome. Happy to have you here. Hi, I see that there's a Rachel on here. Can you advise what news station you're with? And Thomas? So this media availability was meant for our news media partners. APD will be live streaming this on Facebook as well for all of our guests that have joined us. So unfortunately, if I'm unable to verify your media credentials at this time, I will be asking you all to leave this media availability, but it will be available on our Facebook page live streamed, and we will share the link later to Twitter as well. So we kindly ask that if you're not with a news station that you join us on our social media as it's live streamed. Rachel, I see that you're in here and I was unable to verify your media credential. Can you advise what news outlet you're with, please? And also, we do have two phone numbers in here, last digit 6116 and last digit 6005. If you're able to advise what news outlet you're with, please. Okay, it looks like everyone who RSVP'd is in here, so I will go ahead and see if Chief is ready to join us. Thank you all so much for your patience. Hi, Rachel. Can you advise what news agency you're with, please? And just so you all are aware, we will record this media availability.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Joseph Chacon, Interim Chief of Police here. Thank you to our media partners for joining us today and everyone who's joining us live right now on Facebook. I wanted to come on and be able to provide an update on some changes that the Austin Police Department will be making here in the next couple of days, starting on October the 1st. With regard to our response to certain non-emergency situations and how those calls will be routed. There has been some confusion regarding which type of calls and will the police still be responding to calls. And I wanted to be able to provide clarity and reassurance for our public. Safety is our #1 priority. So please know that if this is an emergency situation, when you're calling 911, that you can rest assured that it will be properly routed to a police officer and the officer will respond appropriately and as quickly as possible. Officers are still responding to emergency situations when someone's life or property are in danger. The changes that we're talking about really are a result of recent review of APD's patrol COVID mitigation protocols and really trying to make sure that we are reducing exposure risk both for our public and for our officers. They are a result of recent staffing challenges that we have had. And as we are working through those, we're looking to see how we can deploy staff in the most appropriate manner and really to those calls that need them the most. And these recommendations or these changes really fall in line with many of the recommendations that came from our Reimagining Public Safety Task Force about patrol response overall, and many of them fall in line with this. So if you are experiencing a non-emergency call, and I will be going over specifically the ones that we have changed, then what we ask that you do is to report those either over the phone by calling 311 or by doing it online at ireportaustin.com. I want to be able to define what a non-emergency is versus what is an emergency. So a non-emergency is an incident in which the incident is no longer in progress, the suspect or the people involved are no longer on scene, and there is no further immediate threat to life or property. If the call that you're calling about does not meet all of that criteria, then we define that as an emergency call, that a call to 911 is appropriate. We will be, in some cases, where possible, dispatching our civilian property crime technicians, for instance, if a piece of evidence needs to be collected. However, that will be somewhat limited based upon the staffing considerations that we have in that area as well. I'm going to briefly go over the call specifically that we are putting into this program, and this will go out as part of a press release later today. But I think it's important for our public to just understand, as I go through these, if any of them represent something that is an immediate threat to life or property, in other words, a person is still on scene, the incident is still in progress, these are not what I am talking about. These would represent reports to police of these incidents which have already occurred and the incident is no longer in progress. The calls are animal service, an attempted theft of property, a burglary of a residence, business, or vehicle, crashes between vehicles that do not require a tow, in which there are no injuries, both drivers have proof of insurance and a driver's license, and when neither driver is impaired. Verbal disturbances, prostitution, a suspicious person or vehicle, and finally, theft. Again, if any on that list are still in progress and there is an immediate threat to public safety, then a call to 911 is appropriate and we will dispatch an officer. Regardless of whether that report is made by an officer on scene or it's made by the public either over the phone or online, all of those reports are still routed to our investigative units and will still be followed up as our detectives are able to do so. That really represents the kind of the prepared comments that I had for this, but I will open it up to some questions.
Hey, Chief Chacon, it's Jordan Bonke at CBS Austin. If you can hear me, I wanted to ask you, what kind of training would a civilian receive if they are responding to some of these calls? How are they being trained to respond to these calls here?
So our property crime technicians are actually in our forensics division and do receive specific training on the collection of evidence, including forensic evidence such as DNA evidence or fingerprints, and the proper submission of that. In many respects, they're actually more experienced and better at it than some of our sworn officers, and really are the best people to be responding to do that. But we don't want to send them to scenes that we have an active incident in progress. They're only going to be sent to those that have already occurred, such as a burglary in which the suspect is already gone, and we'll be meeting with the homeowner to go ahead and collect any evidence that we might be able to turn in.
Hi, Chief. Jennifer Sanders here from KXAN. So quick question in terms of, I know some of these calls will go to 311. I don't know if you are able to answer this, but do they have the staffing and the bandwidth to address these calls, and kind of what is the process once they receive that directive from you all, or the call from the person?
You know, our folks at 311 certainly are doing the very best job that they can. You know, I feel like in many areas, not just obviously in our, you know, our sworn officers on the street, but with our property crime technicians in forensics and in our Austin 311 call center, we are experiencing staffing shortages. And so I think that, you know, I'm going to ask for a little bit of patience. Many times people do have to wait on hold when they're calling 311 in order to make that report. Of course, you can always go online if you have access to a computer to do it that way. And we're just going to be working the best that we can, given the circumstances that we have regarding staffing, to still be timely in our response and make sure that people have an opportunity to report crimes.
Thank you so much, Chief. Jennifer Sanders again from KXAN. Can you also just discuss how many officers, I guess, comfortably would you all need to bring staffing up to normal levels where this wouldn't be a conversation we would be having?
You know, that's a great question, because I think that we are still trying to determine what the appropriate level of staffing is based on, you know, what are the types of calls that we should be responding to, and we're going to be seeking you know, input into that area from our community stakeholders, from, you know, city council, from community members at large, you know, in the coming months, to see how they want those police services delivered. And then we'll be able to determine how many officers we really need. I think what's important to remember in there is that if an officer is not necessarily needed, in other words, this is you know, a crime that obviously has already been committed, and we can still get you know, say a property crime technician there to take photos, to be able to gather the evidence, and to provide a case number and a way to follow up to a victim of a crime, then that may be the most appropriate way actually to handle it, so that I can free my officers up to keep answering the emergency calls for service where we have violent crime and people that are actively engaged in criminal activity, it just makes sense to do that.
Chief, it's Nathan Bernier with KUT Radio. If people hear the message, only call 911 if life or property is in immediate danger, what kind of assurance do you offer to those who may be concerned that their crime will be appropriately investigated?
Whether they're calling 911 or 311, and they get a police officer at their door, or they go online, or through 311 are making a report, all of those reports are still getting routed for investigation. If follow-up investigation is appropriate, depending on whatever type of call it is, they are still going to be routed for investigation. So again, we're trying to deal with a rapidly growing city, many more residents coming into the city every day and every year, and as the city continues to grow, the call for more police response continues to grow. So I think that's why we need to, we're having this conversation about what is the appropriate number of police officers. I'm working very hard to handle these staffing issues, and I feel like we're headed in the right direction with the way that we have got our police academy going again, and are going to be pushing through classes in this next fiscal year, and moving forward into the future. In the meantime, it's going to take some patience on the part of our community, certainly, to be able to make those non-emergency calls. And what I would say is that if a person is in doubt about whether it's an emergency or not, then just call 911, and that is going to be the best way to make sure that we'll help you sort that out, and get you pointed in the right direction.
Hello, Chief. This is Alicia Ramos with Innovation. If possible, sir, can you do a quick summary of the information provided for our Spanish-speaking audience?
Yes, I can. So este es un programa nuevo que tiene el Departamento de la Policía, que la policía, si la público tiene llamadas que no son emergencias, puedes llamar a la 311, o puedes ir a la internet y puedes usar the website ireportaustin.com. Estos nomás son por esos llamadas que no son emergencias, que ya están pasados, y no hay peligro a una vida o propiedad. Choques entre vehículos, un robo de residencia, de negocio o vehículo que la sospecha todavía no está allí, un robo de propiedad, o personas o vehículos que son sospechosos, pero todavía no están en escena. Puedes llamar a la 311 para reportarlo. Si es una emergencia o es peligro para la vida o para propiedad, o todavía el sospecho todavía está allí, necesitas llamar a la 911 todavía, y los oficiales todavía van a responder.
And Chief, a last two quick questions from me. Just in terms, this is Jennifer Sanders from KXAN, an uptick in 911 calls. Obviously, I'm sure that you all have experienced that. Can you address that and kind of percentages as it relates to that? And also, if there's any pertinent updates on how you all are addressing the shortages, besides obviously the cadet class, can you discuss that as well? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So with regard to the 911 calls, what we do typically when we are comparing the number of 911 calls is that we will compare to, say, this time last month and this time last year. And what we have seen is that the calls from month to month generally are staying about the same, going up just a little bit, but from this time last year are significantly up. I think that COVID had a lot to do with that, and simply the fact that we've got a society that is out and about again, as opposed to sheltering in place as they were during, those really peak parts of the pandemic. And then we are, not only obviously trying to make moves to get our academies going again, which I think is headed in a positive direction. We have had to move people from specialized positions, and certain units have had to be suspended so that we can move officers back to patrol to handle those emergency response calls. This is, again, kind of an extension of that, to be able to prioritize those urgent and emergency calls for our officers and get them there very quickly, and make sure that people are not having to wait overly long, and find better ways to handle the low level incidents that really just require report, and find better ways to do that. I think that is certainly in line with the what we're trying to accomplish with reimagining public safety, and with the recommendations that have come out of that. And for our public, what it really means is that if it's a low priority call right now, it may take a really long time for officers to respond to it, and we want to be respectful of their time and give them some other options that just make a little bit more sense.
Chief, this is Brad Johnson with the Texan. Is there any update since the last mention of response times? I think it went up to 9 minutes and 30 seconds on average, maybe in early to mid-August. Is there any update on that?
I do not have any So we're about 2 months in, and we wanted to give it some time to be able to look at, have essentially a group of data that's long enough so that it'll be statistically significant, and we can really figure out whether we're moving the needle on this or not. So we're giving it a little bit more time.
Gotcha. If I could follow up with one more. You mentioned the staffing problems quite a bit. Last week, you were asked if you support or oppose Prop A. You declined to answer, and then pretty much at the exact same time that press conference was going on, Mayor Adler put out a statement that said you were opposing Prop A. What do we make of that? Are you taking the neutral position, or are you picking a side?
I have not taken a position on Prop A at all, and have taken a neutral position, and that is my stance today.
Chief, it's Jordan Bonke again at CVS Austin. I just wanted to ask you if this is temporary right now, or is this something that you think will phase out, or is this something that you look to implement full time if it works?
I think that we really need to look to see if this is going to work or not. Right now it's a necessary measure, but I can tell you in the future, as we begin to refill our officer ranks, does it make sense to continue to send a sworn officer to go and essentially just take a report when I have other more pressing and kind of urgent needs for our sworn officers? And instead that I have resources, whether that is online reporting, calling 311, or dispatching a civilian property crime technician to handle some of these. Even going forward, we may keep the model. I think this is the part where we're going to see how this works.
Okay, we'll take one more question.
Chief, I do have a question. It's Jordan Bonke again at CVS Austin. It is not related to this new initiative here, but is regarding the I-35 encampment. The Little Pedal Alliance told us that the I-35 encampment over there by APD headquarters move out was Thursday, but APD came in and gave about an hour and a half to clear out or be arrested. I wanted to see if you could confirm this, and what did today's procedures consist of, at that clean out?
Yeah. I can confirm that's accurate. Our team has continued to work through the Proposition B and continue to, our phased implementation. We are in the final phase that continues, and we continue to work with other city departments on continued encampment cleanups. We did clean that one up today. And again, that is done in concert with, our code personnel, with resource recovery and other city departments that assist with it. What's important to remember is that throughout all of this, we have taken the approach that we want to do this in a humane way, that we wanted to make sure that wherever possible, we were providing, services to those people who might be experiencing homelessness or other issues, and give them avenues to become housed. That has continued to be the way forward for us, and has been successful. Today we had 0 citations and 0 arrests, but I think that if you go by and you drive by, you'll see a change, and that is the change we're working to in the city. Thank you all very much for the continued, assistance with getting the message out with APD. Please direct any further questions back to our public information office. I appreciate you all. Have a great day.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.